Good evening and welcome to Realty Coffee Talk on Awaz Entertainment in Canada around the world. My name is Tahir Qureshi. I'm your host. I'm a real estate broker of record for City Pro Realty Inc. brokerage. Realty Coffee Talk is about connectivity, increasing awareness and building consumer confidence in real estate and promoting good ethic and business practices. Tonight's show is about how commission works in real estate. We're going to talk about who pays the commission and also what are the obligations when you hire a registrant under Real Estate Business Broker Act who is registered with the Real Estate Council of Ontario. So we're going to talk about this very in detail, and today is a great honor for me to have my friend Brad Madigan. He's practiced in law before, and he's a broker with Remax Realty West, I believe.
West, yes.
And he's also instructor with Mississauga Real Estate Board. I'm also instructor at Mississauga Real Estate Board. So welcome to Realty Coffee Talk.
All right, well, thank you very much. I'm happy to join you again. I've been here a couple of times, and I certainly welcome the opportunity.
Yeah, so this topic really came in, I've been having in my mind. I spoke partially in a certain episode. The issue is recently the Real Estate Council of Ontario gave guidelines because they were complaining about it, and they wrote an email about commission.
Yes.
And I thought this would be something very important that we talk about it, what role the commission plays and who pays the commission, and what is a small commission is a small part of the whole agreement when you're signing a BRA or listing agreement.
Yes.
Correct? So let's talk about this. Number one, I think the relationship begins either you are a buyer or you are a seller, correct?
Yes.
So
correct.
let's talk about when you are doing a BRA, when you're trying to buy a property for a client. So how do you deal with this commission situation when you have a BRA? There is a form 300 for BRA for Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, right? So can you explain to our viewers how you see this commission arrangement, how when you are meeting a buyer, a client, or you're representing a buyer client, how you talk about this commission and what services they're trying to engage with you?
Well, the interesting thing about this is if we had two large commercial corporations and they were about to do business with each other, they would each hire lawyers to negotiate the agreement. And the expectation would be Company A pays their lawyer, Company B pays their lawyer. And so that would be fine. That's the arrangement that would take place. Yeah. Unfortunately, when it comes to real estate, the money exists really only on the selling side, that they have the asset to be sold, and they will hire an agent to sell the property. Well, that particular agent usually does not have the buyer. And so the other portion of it really is that the buyer has to come forward. So because of the fact that there's a potential conflict of interest, we have two separate agreements. So a listing agreement establishing agency between the seller themselves and their own listing agent. And then secondly, another agreement which has only been out since about 1990. And it's been out that period of time. And in 1990, it changed. And rather than having two agents, both of whom had obligations to the seller, we have two agents, one for the buyer and one for the seller. But the seller is the one who's going to fund the money most of the time in the real estate transaction.
In my opinion, Brian, it thinks that because a buyer has to pay the closing costs and land transfer fee, therefore maybe they put this burden on the seller in this case. That seller pays for the selling side, and buyer has to pay the buyer.
Yes, now that's the legal part.
Yeah.
If you were to interview an economist here at the present time, they would actually say the real person coming up with the money in the transaction is the buyer, because they're going to fund all the money to pay the entire commission. And the only way that the seller is really able to do that is because the buyer has bought the house. And that's in a sense.
And buyer is represented by the cooperating broker.
Yes, but from a legal perspective, it actually is technically the other way around.
Yeah. So I look at the BRA. We have a form. Toronto Regional Board has a form. 300 is also URIA form. It says that when you are signing a BRA, because a listing buyer representation agreement is signed, the buyer broker is providing the services to help you acquisition of a property, okay, or securing an agreement to purchase and sale. And it says that in consideration of the broker undertaking to assist the buyer agrees to pay commission to the brokerage as follows. If during the currency of this agreement, the buyer enters into an agreement to purchase or lease a real estate of the general prescription indicated above, the buyer agrees to the brokerage entitled to receive and retain any commission offered to a listing broker by a listing broker or by the seller. So that means the buyer representation can collect the commission from listing agent
side, yes,
or from the seller directly. Because right now you can see that lots of companies, brokerage are listing for 1 cent commission.
Yes.
So that means the realtor is not working free. Somebody needs to pay them, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
So that's why this is very important for our realtor friends to talk about that and clarify that in their Schedule A to the agreement BRA.
It has to be extremely discussed and pointed out because it's otherwise not clear. And one of the interesting things is how many times the person has to read the buyer representation agreement before they truly understand it.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that probably to have someone understand it correctly, they probably read it 25 times.
Yeah.
Now, that is not something that's going to happen in one evening with someone who's unfamiliar with the document. It won't just pop off the page to them.
So basically this document says that, viewers, that even though the buyer has made a commitment to pay commission to the buyer broker, but if they get paid by the listing brokerage or the seller an amount that they agreed to sign in this BRA, that the buyer doesn't have to pay. But its agreement further says on page 2, during this period, if the seller does not pay that commission that they have agreed,
yes,
then buyer has to pay that commission.
Absolutely. So, for example, what just to use numbers that people might be familiar with, very often a buyer will come along and agree to pay a commission of 2%, 2.5%, 3% to their own agent. Well, what that means is at the end of the deal, they have to pay that. They're responsible for that.
Yeah.
But subtracting off the top is how much will the seller actually pay them in the deal. And that's going to be in the cooperating listing agreement and how much they've specified.
And it's required to be disclosed according to the agreement.
Yes.
So this is, viewers, that commission is that when you are signing a BRA, we're going to talk about seller also, but BRA is a buyer representation agreement that you are hiring a real estate professional who is licensed by Real Estate Council of Ontario in the province of Ontario. You are needing services of professional and they need to be paid. And as you know, we only get paid when the deal is closed. Sometimes deal goes closed, but very near closing, but never closes, okay? Defaults happen. So buyer is committing to make sure when you are negotiating with the buyer or buyer broker agent, which is real estate broker who is going to help you, make sure that he understands that and you understand that and you expect that you are paying it just in case if the seller doesn't pay you, because when he's trying to negotiate the price, he wants to make sure that the price is negotiated and considered and understood who is paying that commission.
Absolutely. And that's going to vary from deal to deal to deal. And one of the reasons why, so for example, it's very common for the listing agreement to call for about 2.5% to be paid to the buyer's agent.
Correct.
And if that's the case, then there's no difficulty with respect to buyers coming forward and buyers' agents coming forward and showing the property. The difficulty, of course, that presents itself is what if the the seller and the listing agent have said, well, they're not going to pay that commission, and they offer, for example, $1. Well, that's not going to go very far towards giving a credit to the buyer and the buy side. And the concern was, would buyer's agents actually show these properties?
Exactly.
And from a fundamental perspective, the buyer's agents are still under a duty and a legal obligation to show those properties.
Yeah.
They have their fiduciary duties, which might be summarized as disclosure, obedience, confidentiality, competence, accounting, and loyalty. And these are their fundamental fiduciary obligations. And so as a result of that, they've got to show these properties and not be concerned about the money.
Yeah, this is why it's very important to understand, viewers, that when a buyer agent will sign a listing agreement with the brokerage, that we sign the document, that means regardless of commission that he or she will receive, she must show the property that meets your requirement. This is why it's very important to create all the expectation and what you expect from your realtor to perform, and so we can put them in writing in a schedule. And your needs, because you need to define what are you needing for, where your property is needing. Let's assume you buy a property in Mississauga, you sign a listing on Mississauga, and you want him to, the agent is looking in Lisgar and you want in Mineola. And if those property he missed, you may be able to complain, and their penalties $50,000 to the agent and $100,000 to the brokerage. So it creates an obligation to inform the buyer about the property. That's why it's very important to define the jurisdiction.
Yes, absolutely.
Demographic, where you want to buy the property, so the realtor or listing agent, buyer broker will not miss any property in that area. So that means if commission is less, he should be paying, listen, I see the property, you agreed to this commission, I have a property I'm going to show you, but you have agreed to pay. And it is written in the agreement. And the good thing is nobody talk about it. It's written in the agreement.
Absolutely.
And it says that you pay the difference. I'm just going to read you the clause from the BRA agreement. Viewers, if you have bought a property, you sign a BRA with a listed agent, and you have never read this clause, I want to read it to you. It says here in section 2, the buyer agrees to pay directly to the brokerage any deficiency between this amount and the amount, if any, to be paid to the brokerage by a listing brokerage or by seller. The buyer understands that if the brokerage is not to be paid any commission by a listing brokerage or by the seller, the buyer will pay the brokerage the full amount of the commission indicated above.
Yes. So for example, if we had someone purchase $1 million property and they agreed to pay 2.5% commission, that means they owe $25,000.
Exactly.
Now in many cases, the listing agreement will call for $25,000 to be paid. So the buyer is looking at it and said, that's fine, it's a wash. I don't have to come up with anything. But in certain circumstances, the amount that's being paid by the seller is $1.
Yeah.
So that doesn't go too far if you owe $25,000 plus HST.
Viewers, one thing is I want to clarify, Brian, maybe you can help me out, is that when realtor is trying to determine value of property and help you to negotiate, provide data, that is the estimated or future value that you're going to buy the property based on the data available. And once it's sold and accepted, become a market value, okay? So that has nothing to do with the commission.
Zero.
It is the value of the property. Lots of people and consumers are confused, oh, I am paying it. You are paying the value of the property, and the amount that seller receives through the listing agent or the broker or directly is paying to us because he used the services, correct?
Yes.
You want to enlighten a little bit on that?
Yeah, so certainly one of the things in terms of valuation by the banks, CMHC and so on, recognizing what's the value of a property. So when we come up with a number, for example, 100% of the value of the property being $1 million, everybody thinks, oh, my property is worth $1 million and you're on your own about the commission.
Yeah.
Well, no, the commission is actually buried in that price. And so if there's, for example, $50,000 associated with the commission, the CMHC and the banks will have already valued that in. And that's why the property is worth $1 million. Otherwise, if it was a private transaction, you could enter into the same arrangements and pay full price. Well, you should be doing business at $950,000 then.
That is true, that because seller wants to sell the property.
Yes.
And he retained the services of a real estate professional to help him to sell the property. So he's already agreeing to pay that. So recently we have multiple bids, property is selling much higher than what they're supposed to be because of value. At the end, it's created a new dilemma because sometimes the appraised value is lower than what they sold, purchased for, and they have a difficulty to bridge the gap between the purchase price or if they sold the property before, and they need more money. Who's going to pay the more money? And deal sometimes fell apart. Or the bank say, I can't give you the mortgage, the deal fell apart, and we have new challenges. Right? So the real thing is, commission is seller agrees to pay if their agent or the brokerage sell that property. But if the brokerage uses another cooperating brokerage to help to sell the property, he or she is sharing her portion with the cooperating broker, correct?
Yeah.
Because we want to clarify to consumer, this is why it's important to talk about it, because it links. Commission is only one section 2 in BRA. The rest we have multiple representation, we have representation, referring the property, other obligation, because realtor has a fiduciary duty. We're going to talk about the fiduciary duty. So it is treated as an unprofessional, section 39, rebut that a registrant knowingly ignore a property that offer a low commission.
Yes, so they cannot refuse to show that.
They need to show that.
They need to and let the buyer make their own decision with their own informed consent. Let's review the situation, and here's the amount that you'll have to pay. We'll buy the property, and there's a little top up in terms of the commission.
So this is comes about creating more clarity of building a relationship. When you are buying a property worth $1 million, you need this full understanding before you enter into a BRA or listing agreement. The idea is you create that, the real estate professional has to understand the need of the buyer. What are the needs of the buyer, and what is his budgets are? What can be done with it to make sure this can be a smooth transaction, and what role that you're going to play to bring this dream of having own a reality, correct? So these are all connected. Commission is one portion. We're talking about legal liability, and if there is a complaint to the regulator, disciplinary action, and if the commission is only $10,000 and you can be fined for $50,000 for violating this section of the RIBA, and $100,000 to the brokerage. So viewer, you can watch that our regulator is very strict about maintaining and protecting consumers.
Yes.
And regulating this business area. So this is again in the section 36 about the remuneration. So there is any standard that we talk about commission? There is any standard in the industry or any regulation?
Well, it's very. We're now talking about the Competition Act.
Yeah.
And the Competition Act would say that there cannot be a standard in the industry. So bear in mind that there are 90,000 registrants, real estate agents who are registered to do business in the province of Ontario. And so they can all set their own commissions as they see fit. And so what you're going to find is some of the larger ones with lots of facilities and lots of buildings and lots of advertising, they're going to have to charge more. And you may find someone who is brand new to the business saying, well, I don't have the overhead. I could I can do a few deals for some friends and colleagues to get myself started, and they don't charge nearly as much. So there's quite a spread in terms of what people may happen to charge. Now, of course, what you find is it's the larger brokerages that often control most of the listings. So that's an issue from the perspective of the competition board looking at it.
Yeah, viewers, there is no law, there is no regulation, there is no requirement or industry standard what to charge commission. It is the agreement between the buyer and the buyer broker, or the seller and the listing agent. Commission is based on the type of service that you want. Obviously, if you're not paying any commission, you're not taking them seriously, and you're not motivating the real estate profession to deliver a valuable services. Unfortunately, the realtor has no choice. They are registered, they are regulated. And how much they value, if a realtor cannot defend his or her commission, how is she going to help and deliver a value of the property?
Yes, and it's one thing to be aware of the fact that it's based on success.
Yes.
So if there's no success, there is no fee.
Yeah.
So zero. As opposed to if you went to a lawyer and you just talk about something for a while, you're going to get a bill. And if you continue to talk about it for 2 or 3 years, you're going to get quite a few bills, one every month, as you know, and mount up a very sizable account. On the other hand, if you were working with a real estate agent, you're not paying anything. And so it does seem to be a bigger payday once it arrives. But it's important to be aware of the fact that buyers and sellers truly, when they do business, are paying for all of those showings and all of the extra work that is uncompensated.
Yeah, this is also very important. I pointed out to viewers that when we are performing duties as a real estate professional, we are self-employed.
Yes.
We have to pay the mortgage, we have to pay the insurance, we have to send kids to the school, we have to put food on the table, and all property taxes, payment for the cars, gas, everything. And we don't get paid until deal closes. So therefore it could be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, 6 months. So we are already contributing significantly in towards of providing a professional service to you. So you make sure you understand that when you are negotiating a fee with your client, you are technically hired a listing brokerage or buyer brokerage to help you in the acquisition or disposition of the property. So therefore, you owe it to them, because look at the value of the property has gone skyrocket. Last few years, especially in COVID, almost 30% price has gone up.
Absolutely, absolutely.
And in every 10 years that I see, the prices are double.
Yep.
So definitely your realtor deserve it, because he and she will spend day and night 24/7 to help you find a property. Because this is very critical, this is very, very important for you. When you are negotiating with them, you need to sit down with the realtor, if you're listing or buying, that what are your expectations, what their deliverance are, so you are able to monitor it. Put in a Schedule A, this is the specific geographic area that you want a property. Sometimes the people put in Ontario. You know how easily you can be in trouble for that.
Oh, very, very easily.
So this is why, if I'm just citing Mississauga because I live in Mississauga, I will specify that particular community that you want to buy the property, to make sure that if I buy a property and someday later something else comes out and you say, I you didn't show me this, and you can complain to real estate counsel, then I can be fined $50,000 and my broker $100,000. So how sensitive, how critical, how important is you have to be forthcoming and disclosing yourself how you get pen to pay, because you don't want to miss this out, right?
One of the things too, and there's a little bit of a difficulty, and this may be the reason why RICO has come up with this problem at the moment, is that there's two systems for MLS that exist throughout Ontario. Certainly, Toronto Real Estate Board uses one system, and many other boards, about 22 other boards throughout the province, use another system. So you could have, for example, a property in Mississauga, and it's not listed with the Toronto Real Estate Board. So it doesn't, it's silent when Toronto Real Estate Board users are looking at their computers. So that's not good. Now, most don't do that. Most will list on both boards now. But the same thing is true with respect to Oakville. Well, what you're really looking at is it may very well be that somebody from Toronto, one of the Toronto buyer's agents, is going to bring the client forward. So it would be very important to ensure that you have a real estate agent who has access to both systems.
This is very important. Myself, I'm in Mississauga. We are member of Mississauga Real Estate Board and Toronto Regional Real Estate Board, and we have access to both listings. We search on both listings.
Absolutely.
And it's called Information Technology Ontario System Ontario. It's so.
Yes.
And I'm a member of actually the Technology Committee.
Oh,
arbitration committee. And
good. I'm not so technical.
Yeah.
So I won't be on any of those committees.
Yeah. So we're going to take a short break now. My name is Tahir. We're going to take a short break and we'll come back to you. You're watching Realty Coffee Talk on Awaz Entertainment in Canada, around the world.
पूरे ओंटारियो में लाखों लोग अपनी कोविड-19 की वैक्सीन हासिल कर चुके हैं। हेल्थ कनाडा की मंजूरशुदा तमाम वैक्सीन्स महफूज और अस्पतालों, डॉक्टर्स के दफातर, फार्मेसीज और अवामी वैक्सीनेशन के मुकामात पर हासिल हैं। अपना किरदार अदा करें, अपनी वैक्सीन हासिल करें। 300 जुबानों में मदद के लिए ontario.ca/book वैक्सीन पर जाएं या 1-888-999-6488 पर कॉल करें।
Canada's Conservatives will secure the future for Milton. From Milton's small business and entrepreneurial sector to manufacturing, our plan will get Milton's economy back on track. We will restore accountability and trust in government, address the mental health epidemic, ensure we're ready for the next health crisis, and get Canada's fiscal house in order. I'm thrilled to work with your Conservative candidate, Nadeem Akbar. Nadeem has 17 years of experience as an IT professional. He's passionate about giving back to the community. Now he's ready to be your next Member of Parliament. Nadeem is ready to serve the people of Milton.
Hello Milton, my name is Nadeem Akbar. I'm your Conservative candidate. To connect with me, check out my website nadeemakbar.ca.
पाकिस्तान का सबसे मशहूर एक्स्ट्रा लॉन्ग ग्रेन मुगल बासमती राइस अवेलेबल इन बोथ व्हाइट एंड सिला. Home delivery is available, subject to minimum order and radius. Also available at your neighborhood fresh co. मजीद मालूमात के लिए आज ही कांटेक्ट करें 5146630480 पर या ऑर्डर करें हमारे फेसबुक से. बनाए ये रमजान और भी खास मुगल बासमती के साथ. The premium choice for premium taste. का लाजवाब ऑफर जहां हम 0% फाइनेंसिंग पर आपकी मनपसंद कार दे रहे हैं, फ्री विंटर टायर्स और साथ ही हम मुफ्त ऑयल चेंज भी दे रहे हैं, वो भी उम्र भर के लिए. अभी आएं और इस लाजवाब ऑफर का लुत्फ लें. जल्दी करें, आपका खुशामदीद हमारे आउटलेट में जो कि 60 क्वींस प्लेट ड्राइव एट इंटरसेक्शन क्लोज टू हाईवे 27 एंड रेक्सडेल अपोजिट टू वुडबाइन रेस ट्रैक. जल्द से जल्द इस ऑफर का लुत्फ लें. आज ही कॉल करें सुनील अग्रवाल को 647-703-0218. देखिए खेल की आवाज हर पीर शाम 7 बजे। आज की बात समीना जबीन के साथ हर मंगल रात 8 बजे। इस्लाम इन मॉडर्न टाइम हर मंगल और जुमा शाम 6 बजे। कनेडियन मोज़ेक हर बुध रात 8 बजे। रियलिटी कॉफी टॉक हर जुमेरात शाम 7 बजे। टुनाइट टॉक हर जुमा शाम 7 बजे। देखिए तकरार, कीजिए तकरार समीना जबीन के साथ हर रोज रात 9 बजे और रिपीट सुबह 9 बजे। आप देख रहे हैं आवाज एंटरटेनमेंट, आवाज आपकी, चैनल हमारा, जुड़िए हमसे।
डिक्सी और एग्लिंटन के इंटरसेक्शन पे तशरीफ लाइए ज़ौक़ रेस्टोरेंट। जायकेदार लजीज खानों का मरकज, पाकिस्तानी, इंडियन और हक्का चाइनीज। आप हमसे लाइव बारबेक्यू और कैटरिंग के लिए राब्ता कर सकते हैं। राब्ते के लिए हमारा नंबर 9056257786।
ज़ौक़ रेस्टोरेंट, ज़ौक़ वालों।
Good evening and welcome to Realty Coffee Talk on Awaz Entertainment. My name is Tahir Aikrashi. My guest is today Brian Madigan. We are talking about how commission works in real estate. So we're going to continue our conversation. Now we talk about commission holdover period. In most cases, there is a holdover period defined in BRA and also listing agreement.
Yes.
Can you tell us your experience about
Well,
that?
the interesting thing about, so if we look at two things.
Yeah.
We've got a holdover period in the listing agreement. So basically what that means is that if a listing agreement ran for 3 months, we probably have a holdover period for another 3 months. So 90 days after the listing expired and was finished, the seller is still obligated to pay a commission if a person came and viewed the property, or, and this is a different one, this is the one that goes to court frequently, the next door neighbor approached them and said, I have a buyer or I would like to buy your property. And they say, okay, fine, I'll wait until the listing is up and then I'll do business with you. No, you can't. You have to wait this extra holdover period, which is going to take you up to another, let's say, 6 months.
Yeah.
And then you're free to do business the day after that. But many deals, people are just unaware of it. So what you have to do is there's a legal obligation on the seller that if the next door neighbor comes and approaches them to buy, they can't do a separate private deal. They have to take that and say, I've got to tell my real estate agent that my next door neighbor has approached me. And that's during this listing period.
I'm going to ask you a question about this regarding commercial deal. You presented an offer to someone and everything is moving, you got a counter and all of a sudden something is disconnected, they send you back, it's off, okay? And a few months later, same buyer buys the property, and it's a commercial, and the agent they use a different company, but
Yes.
owner is related.
The which?
Ownership is related.
Yes.
So what do you think about that course?
Well, that's a situation in which the buyer has done a little bit of an end run on their own agent.
Yeah.
And so they've promised their agent for months and months that they would buy a property through
They already
them.
signed the BRA,
And
but
so as a result of that, their own agent has shown them all kinds of properties. There's no fee to go out and show it. It's not done, finished. It's sort of like, we'll have one success because you've got enough money to buy one property. Now the difficulty is they see a property with a particular agent, view it, and then later they pause and they say, oh, I'm not really interested. I don't think I'm going to buy anything in this market. But they go around and use a different agent to buy that particular property. If that's the case, the buyer representation agreement creates an obligation on the buyer to pay the full commission to their own agent. So they're paying twice.
What about that if they say agree the seller will pay the commission and they bypass that? It says in writing.
Yes, so that would get credited to it.
Yeah. All right, wonderful. So that's a good point. The reason I point this out is that it very often happens when you have open house in the past, not recently, where the listing agent might say to the buyer who's coming to an open house,
yes,
you buy from me, don't use your own buyer broker, have an independent advice, I give you a better price or something like that.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that ethically?
Well, certainly there's no question about it that ethically it's inappropriate. Not only inappropriate, but it's a serious, warrants serious disciplinary censure from RICO. In other words, you can't deal with somebody who already has an agent. So if somebody comes to an open house, if they're simply walking in on their own, you can talk to them if you're the listing agent. But at the moment the person says, well, I do have an agent, then you have to stop that conversation right there, and it's
That's the first question they should be asking. Do you have a
an
BRA or not? You have an agent or not?
Yeah, and if you don't have an agent, then I can talk to you. If you do have an agent, then you'll have to speak to them.
The viewers, you have to understand that when you go to a listing agent to look at the property, right now digitally, electronically, virtually everybody's doing it. Listing agent is the representative of the seller. In most cases, the buyer will become a customer service, not necessarily a buyer representation agreement, because they have committed with the seller. So it's always a good idea to have your own independent broker, real estate agent or realtor, whatever you want to call it, to help you to negotiate to protect your interests. Because when they sign a BRA that we have all been talking about, they have a legal obligation to protect your interests. What is the biggest motivation for realtor is to get paid after hard work, and that is that commission. The rest, everything is he has to abide by this book, Real Estate Business Broker Act. I'm going to show you. This is called Real Estate Business Broker Act, right here. And you can go to RECO, reco.on.ca. Real Estate Council of Ontario is a regulator on behalf of the Government of Ontario. They have an education program. They have a mandate to implement education program, registration program, compliance program, and consumer protection program in real estate profession in industry in Ontario. So this is why all realtors are regulated, and you have the right to complain if they breach the code of ethics of the real estate business broker Ontario regulation 580-/05 code of ethics, or other things, because lots of expectations are not written down, they're all verbal agreement. So it's very important when you're entering into a BRA, buyer representation agreement, please create a Schedule A and put it in writing. Clarify it.
Absolutely.
What is expected? Because you want certain amount, you want certain bedroom sizes, you want certain location, demographic, community. You can put all that information in Schedule A. Let your BRA buyer representative work for it, draft it for you, get it reviewed by your lawyer if you want to. Get it done and understand relationship and your obligation toward commission. Commission is only one when it's negotiated and finished with. Agent don't get, like Brian said, we don't get paid at all. I think other people charge them in the front. We don't get paid like that.
No.
We are not authorized to collect any money according to REBA.
Yeah.
So this is why it's very, very important to your expectation should be written down. What you expect from realtor. What is your obligation as a buyer to make sure you are prepared to buy a property. You have put your all together. There are lots of programs that we have done. You can go to realtycoffeetalk.com and you can view those programs, or Awaz Entertainment. You can search those on YouTube, where we have different topics. We talk about buyer and representation. What are the obligation of the client? What is the obligation of the realtor and the brokerage? So this is why it's very important that now I'm going to talk about this again, just to clarify that. Let's say you are a listing broker and I'm a buyer broker, okay?
Yep.
You listed a property and you say, I'm going to give you 1 cent. My client likes the property, okay? So I am telling you to please pay the commission because my buyer is saying to me that if he has to pay the commission, I can offer you the price that you're asking, correct?
Exactly. So
but I cannot deny him the property. I'm going to show him the property. I'm going to remind my buyer client that you're going to end up paying it if he doesn't pay.
Well, sure. And one of the things is what that does is brings your client to the table. And of course, you're reluctant to pay. And what we're going to end up having is, in order to get the deal done, we're going to have to lower the price and have it paid my commission by my client, your portion of the commission pursuant to the BRA by your client directly. Now, one of the things that's helpful, of course, is the banking system. The banking system will recognize that you're performing an appropriate role and that it's valued in the purchase price of the property. So they will fund it by way of mortgage financing. Otherwise, your client has to go to their own bank account and say, oh, do I have this extra cash that's available for this deal?
Yeah, this is the point that Brian is making is that the bank, when they do appraise the value, they look at the market value of the property. Sometimes they are very conservative. Normally they are conservative.
Yes.
So that means if you got the mortgage, that means your buyer agent has done a good job. You got the financing. Make sure it's done, mortgage financing is done right. I'm a principal broker of Canada Express Mortgage. I have a license, 13241. I can talk about the mortgage. There's a lot of challenges. There are lots of rumors. People are not practicing ethically, arranging mortgage, buying properties, or helping buy property where there is no income. You know, you are leading into a very gray area that can lead you to a disciplinary action by Ontario, Financial Service Commission of Ontario, FISRA, and also criminal act violating the Mortgage Act by playing with the documents, falsification. So be careful about it. Talk to your agent. What are your financial condition? Are you really ready? Go to my website, city-pro.net. There's a buyer tips and seller tips. Give you very in detail, step-by-step instruction how to do these things. And we have also mortgage a calculator that you can go there and calculate whether you can afford it or not. What is the value that you can afford it? This is very important. You don't need to ask anybody. Just select the interest rate, put your information. Sitting at your home, you can calculate whether you can afford it or not. This is why it's very important that you have hired a good professional. That's why we have a designation. Brian teaches realtors for many years, and he has many good courses for realtors. So please subscribe to Mississauga Real Estate Board Education. I'm a chair, for disclosure, I'm a Mississauga Real Estate Board and chair of Education Committee. Our goal is to educate our realtors to provide better service and deliver value to their client, and so no disciplinary action taken against them. Idea is to learn from it.
Yes.
Rather than getting in trouble and then...
You're better to learn from somebody else's mistakes rather than making them on your own.
Yeah.
Learn from their experience, and then all of a sudden, you know.
If you have any question regarding this program, you can call me. My direct number is 416-451-3489. My office number is 905-785-9923. And you can watch it, like it, Awaz Entertainment on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, everywhere. And our goal is to increase awareness, building consumer trust, and promoting good ethical professional practices in real estate. I take this opportunity to thank you all for watching. If you wish to advertise on Realty Coffee Talk and Awaz Entertainment, please reach out to Samina Jabin. She's the Managing Director. She will give you a very special rate because you are a viewer of Realty Coffee Talk. Her number is 416-786-9809, or you can call 647-484-0018, and she will be happy to accommodate you. And again, our program is watched throughout in Canada, across the world. So I take this opportunity to thank you. Brian, you want to say the last word for this whole scenario?
Well, no, I want to thank you very much for having and hosting this particular program. It's rare. There's not too many people doing it. In fact, I don't know of anyone else hosting such a program where it's available on a continuing basis,
we started
where it's independent.
Yeah, we are from the March, since March 5th, without any break, we have every week this program.
Yeah.
And I thank you very much for coming.
Well, I'm pleased to be here.
It was pleased to see you
I
again
have
finally.
it's COVID. I have nowhere else to go.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. We take this opportunity on behalf of Awaz Entertainment and Realty Coffee Talk to thank our armed forces, medical staff, armed forces, and doctors, nurses, paramedics for their support and service of protecting our fellow citizens in Canada. And we thank you very much. May God bless you all. May God bless Canada. Bye for now from Awaz Entertainment and Realty Coffee Talk. Thank you. See you next Thursday at 7 p.m.